Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we are taking another look back at 2015. This time we're taking a look at the top 10 reprints. Now, when we do our top 10 games of the year, and most people do, most of the time they don't pick reprints of older games, which makes sense because we're trying to look for new games, but sometimes reprints are exceptionally good reprints of older games. Sometimes they take the older game and only bring part of it and really do a good job at just, reimagining it. Sometimes it's the same game, it just has new components and things like that. But reprints are almost always better. Not always Hasbro, but almost always better. These are my 10 favorite reprints. Remember, I haven't played everything over the course of the year, but I have played most, or not most, but a lot of games. So here are my top 10 reprints. Number 10 is the only game on the list that I actually have not played. I've opened it up, read the rules, looked at it and everything, but because I played the original game and can see some of the differences, I wanted to put this on the list, and that is Stronghold 2nd Edition from Stronghold Games. Stronghold was a two-player game in which one person was defending a castle, the other person was like these forces attacking the castle, and it was just back and forth. It was good, but it was a little wonky back and forth. Now it's a much more straightforward with nicer components. It looks really good, and I'm anxious to get it played. Number 9 is Empire's Age of Discovery from Eagle Griffin. Now this one might actually be higher, except that this game is incredibly expensive. They made the game super deluxe, and it has have a few knocks against it because they have an alternate board on the other side that you can use, which really doesn't work because they didn't give you all the components for that. But that's not needed, and the rest of the game is really well done. This game comes with tons of plastic miniatures and ships and tokens, and this worker placement game, one of the best ones that I've ever played. It's been out of print for a while. It was originally called Age of Empires, although it doesn't really have much to do with that. So now that it's Empire's Age of Discovery, really well done game, plays very quickly. It's a both area control and worker placement. They did a nice job on this one. Number 8 is the Special Deluxe Edition of Orleans. Tasty Minstrel reprinted that. That came out last year, or in 2014. It was a very popular game, and Tasty Minstrel brought it to America, but did it in a very deluxe method. Instead of having small tokens, they changed them to wooden tokens with stickers on them. Instead of tokens for components, they were all wooden pieces. And wow, does that make a difference. The coins, it was just a really beautiful production. They didn't change anything that I can tell from the original game. The original gameplay is very strong, still a solid, good Euro game with different decisions to make, but the production values were through the roof, and I just really enjoyed this one. Number 7 is Celestia. Now, Celestia is a reprint of an older game from Out of the Box Publishing called Cloud 9, in which you're going up in an air balloon and jumping out when you think it's about to crash. Celestia changed the air balloon to a dirigible, added a little bit of a steampunk theme to it, added some special cards, and for the most part, did a really good job at bringing this older game back with some of the best artwork you will see all year. Celestia is just a beautiful, beautiful game. Celestia is a very simple game about pushing your luck, rolling dice, and then everyone has to decide, is it time to jump out of the balloon now or wait till later? A solid, fun, entertaining game. Number 6 is Fury of Dracula, 3rd edition. I never played the first edition of Fury of Dracula, but I know it was kind of sprawling and scrambled. When Fantasy Flight reprinted it with the 2nd edition, it was really good. Slight bit long. There were like a few niggly problems, but it was an excellent game. I think the 3rd edition has gotten rid of all those problems, and it has really streamlined Fury of Dracula. I always thought that the original one, the 2nd edition, was slightly biased towards Dracula. This one seems to make it a much fairer battle. I like the graphical design overlay that was put on this game. I think they fixed some things like train tickets and just the combat in general. Very smooth game. If you like one person against a pile of people, this game has high production and also is a really fun version of that style of game. Number 5 is the 3rd edition, this seems to be a trend here, of Runebound. Again, I did not play the 1st edition of Runebound because when it came out, Fantasy Flight almost instantaneously put out a 2nd edition of Runebound. Designed by Martin Wallace, not known for these types of games, the Runebound was good, but it was very lengthy and there were some clunky things like combat and such. They've now streamlined combat into using chips, which is an interesting idea and is a bit unique in how it works in this game as you're using your chips back and forth. But it still has that idea of going out on adventures. Now, I wouldn't play this with more than 3 players. A little lengthy, I think, for that. But the game itself still offers that whole sense of exploration and adventure, and really does a good job. They took a lot of the good aspects of it and made it better. Let's see, number 4. Mission Red Planet. Oh, we've been waiting for this one ever since the original Aspect A production went out of print. You know that on the Dice Tower, we've always been talking about how much we like this area control game where you play cards, put people on rocket ships, and then send them off to Mars in a really cool steampunk setting. They kept that steampunk setting. They made some changes to the game graphically, and they made some changes with some of the components, but they also added Phobos, a moon that goes around Mars, bring almost a little bit of El Grande into this game. They changed the little wooden discs that rolled all over the place to little plastic spacemen. Just really upped the ante on this solid game while keeping the basic mechanisms of the game intact. Like I said, they added that Phobos moon, but I think that was an excellent addition to the game. Doesn't change it dramatically, although it does add a few more strategies that you can try. This is a fantastic game that I think almost everybody should give a try out to. Number 3 is Mogul. Mogul is a reprint of a very small European game about trains and stocks. And Rio Grande was reprinting it in a bigger box with a game board. The original game didn't really need a game board. It was just to keep track of cards, of scores. But now there's a game board where you could put pieces on the game board. What they did is they took the one small flaw of the original game, which was at the beginning of the game getting second place in an auction didn't really do anything, and now it is a big deal. And that really the game is almost a perfect little gem. If you like bidding games like No Thanks, where you throw a chip in and to stay in the bidding, or you stop, that's Mogul is that exact same thing with a kind of an interesting little stock market game behind that, where you're collecting stocks of different colors and different trains. Really cool game. If you've never played it, I certainly recommend trying it out. Number 2 is Mage Wars Academy. Now this is really skirts the line of being a reprint and a sequel. Mage Wars is a game that I really love. Putting your 2 mages out, summoning creatures, fighting each other, big tactical board game with cards. We were never sure if it was a board game, a miniatures game, or a card game. It's like a mixture of all 3. Mage Wars Academy was meant to be almost like an introduction to the series. Hey, here's a simple beginner's version of Mage Wars. And when I played it, I ended up liking it better than the bigger game because it was so much more straightforward. It was as fast to play as Magic. You still had your spell book that you would build and pick which cards you're going to build rather than have a random deck. And it had a lot of the same mechanisms, but in a very much more streamlined fashion. Mage Wars Academy, really good. And then number 1, this one is a smaller game, but one I was so excited about, and that's Stellar Conflict. Now, Stellar Conflict is based on an old game called Lightspeed, in which players took cards that were ships and threw them on the table very quickly, as fast as they could, and then the game was over. And then you took like a long ruler or something and looked where each ships with lasers were pointing, and then you saw what ships blew each other up and got points. Some of the ships had different shields, and some of the ships had different lasers, and you're trying to mine things with your lasers and also blow up enemy ships and not blow up your own. But the game was so fast and frenetic. The new game is a little bit slower, not much. I mean, the longest game is still 2 minutes as you place these cards out. But it works really well, and they took the same concept, putting the ships down, but now they made the different fleets asymmetrical. Some of them have different special powers. Some have lasers that go through shields. Others have ships that are faster and get to shoot first. Some have ships that shoot twice. None of this is very complex. It provided a little like rubber band thing that you could use. It came in the box. You don't have to worry about finding a giant ruler. But it still is that basic concept: play cards quickly and then see what happens. That plus some great artwork coming from the Among the Stars universe. This is my favorite reprint of the year. Really, there was a lot of great reprints from the year. I didn't mention the El Grande, Elfenroach, Dracone, Samurai, Through the Ages, Six Nymph. There was a lot of games that were reprinted this year, and it's great to see these great games coming back in print. Those are my favorite reprints. What are yours? Tell us in the comments. We'd love to hear about them. Thanks so much for watching our 2015 year-end videos. I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.